Good evening, and thank you for joining us today at this Facebook Live event. My name is Angel Padilla. I'm the Policy Director here at Indivisible.
Hi, my name is Sarah Marino, and I'm an Organizing Manager with the team here.
And hi, my name is Isaac Bloom. I'm the National Organizing Director with Indivisible. This is my first week, so I'm really excited to introduce myself to folks. With apologies to Nebraska, who I just talked to, I'm super excited to be a part of this movement. I got my start in punk rock. That's how I first got into organizing, and the DIY ethic of Indivisible that allows people with no prior experience to take a little manual with a bunch of typos and hold their representatives accountable is actually one of the most powerful things I've ever seen, and feels like an amazing through line to my life. So excited to be here.
And so the reason why we're having this event is because we want to make sure that we talk about the big event of the day, which is the James Comey testimony today in the Senate Intelligence Committee. We will get to that. Before we go there, though, we want to quickly introduce the newest Indivisible group. This is the newest group to register on our website. This is Indivisible Canton, Massachusetts. That's in Massachusetts 8, and their representatives are Warren, Markey, and Lynch.
Welcome.
So Sarah's going to put the dot up. There you go. Welcome, Indivisible Canton, Massachusetts.
That's so great.
All right, so let's just get down to business. The reason why we're having this Facebook Live event is because of the James Comey testimony today in the Senate Intelligence Committee. This was a big deal, and we'll get to why this is a big deal, but we just wanted to take a moment to put this into perspective. There are a lot of questions about what this means, where do we go from here, how does this affect the rest of the Trump agenda, and we're going to get to that. One thing I do want to note is that we're not constitutional lawyers, and so we're not going to be able to answer all of the technical, constitutional, legal questions. This is more about why this matters and how to put this into perspective. The bottom line is that this makes it so much more important for us to fight back against the Trump agenda, and we're going to go through why. So I'm going to quickly go over what he said, how this relates to the rest of the agenda, and then what you can do, and Isaac and Sarah will cover that. So today, it was, here in Washington, D.C., everyone was watching one thing, and that was the James Comey testimony. And it was, this was the first time that we got to hear from James Comey himself what exactly Trump said to him. There have been a lot of reports about whether or not Trump was trying to interfere with an ongoing FBI investigation. And today, during this testimony, we heard it directly from James Comey that Donald Trump interfered with an ongoing FBI investigation. This is a huge deal. This is obstruction of justice. Period. This is obstruction of justice. This is an impeachable offense, and that's why that changes the political situation. That's why we at Indivisible are now calling for impeachment hearings. Impeachment is a very long process. It's not a simple process. It's been done before, and it's not something that happens immediate. But it always begins with impeachment hearings. We need to know more, and we need members of Congress not to sit on their hands. They need to be calling for impeachment hearings. This is a violation, and we need to make it clear that no one is above the law, not me, not anyone else, not even the President of the United States. So if he interfered with an ongoing FBI investigation, that is an impeachable offense, and we need to have impeachment hearings. There were a few other takeaways, but that is the sort of the bottom line. With that being said, we want to make it clear that there are still a lot of things on the table right now. Republicans in Congress are still fighting. They're still trying to rubber stamp the Trump agenda, the rest of the Trump agenda. Right now, senators in Congress are actively meeting in secret to try to pass an ACA repeal bill. We've already gotten that ACA repeal bill, the Trump Care bill, out of the House, and now the Senate is focusing on it. Even though we are in this big moment now for our country, this is a constitutional crisis, we can't lose sight of the prize. We've got to keep our eye on the prize, and that is stopping the Trump agenda. That's why you have gathered into groups, and that's why we're here. We need to stop the Trump agenda, and the first thing that we need to focus on now, while we're calling for impeachment hearings, is to stop things like the ACA repeal, because it's going to affect millions of people. And just to give you guys a sense of why this is so important, just today, while Comey was testifying, the House passed the Financial Choice Act. This bill would gut some of the Dodd-Frank protections. These are the laws that were put in place to protect consumers following the financial crisis. And even as Comey was testifying, the House was prepping, was getting ready to pass this bill. That's why it's important that you guys stay active and you keep the momentum going, keep resisting. And I'll turn it over to Isaac now to talk a little bit about what this moment means for all of you.
Sure. So I think there are kind of two pieces here, and we're going to talk here in a second about the asks that we're actually making. But I want to talk a little bit about why this is an organizing moment and why we made the choice to do this. So I think a lot of people have thought that this was coming, many of us since the very first day of the Trump presidency. But the truth of the matter is that everybody knows what happened. And if we're all being honest with ourselves, we've known that we were going to have to make this ask at some point. One of the things that's incredibly powerful about the Tea Party is that they drove the conversation and framed the debate. The Tea Party are the folks who really forced the Dems to lose in Congress after the ACA was passed the first time. And they did that by driving the conversation in Washington and across the country and in the news media. They did that because they had so many people. Here's the thing, we're way bigger than the Tea Party ever was. And that's the thing that we bring to this fight. We are incredibly powerful because we have so many people, and we have people in every congressional district all over the country, an average of 13 groups per congressional district. That means that representatives fear us. And that means that it's incumbent on us to drive the conversation. An organization like Indivisible that is made up of real people out in the world who can hold their representatives accountable, we have to actually say it when something like this happens. And so this isn't a decision that we made lightly. We talked a lot about it, but I think one of the things at the end that Leah, our co-executive director, said that really resonated with me was, at the end of the day, if there's debate, I'd rather do the thing that I can be proud of. And I think that's why we decided to make this decision now. The other piece of this is that because this is a long process, we have to get started now. We have to drive the party in power, the Republicans, to actually own this. They elected this guy. They know what he's doing. And if they're being honest with themselves, they should be the ones who are moving the impeachment articles forward and actually giving us impeachment hearings. And if they won't, when Dems call on them to do that thing, when we call on them to do that thing, if they won't do it, we're going to hang it around their necks in 2018, and we're going to force them to reckon with this. I don't know about you, but I've woken up every day since the election with a white-hot fury, and I think this is the right thing to be doing if we're being honest with ourselves, and if we're being honest with the media, and if we're being honest with our representatives. So that's why we chose this moment, and that's why this is the important thing for us to be doing. I'm going to pass it over to Sarah to talk a little bit about the couple of asks that we're making for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So though we have a new script, you can see it on the website at indivisibleguide.com, or you can go straight to indivisibleguide.com/resources. And we have these new asks. We are now calling for these impeachment hearings. The tactics that we're using aren't changing all that much. So over the last week during Memorial Day recess, you guys mobilized to town halls, had huge showings. In places where your member of Congress wouldn't have a town hall, you had adopted district town halls. There were great events in Illinois, in California, in Wisconsin. We saw empty chair town halls. So there was a town hall in Philadelphia that Toomey did not show up to, but the groups there organized a town hall anyway. We even saw some kayaks out there, which is always a favorite. But we saw them out there protesting Trump, and so we saw these great events happening. And so you all know these tactics. Make sure that you keep using them, keep making calls, keep showing up to town halls, keep planning these events. So we'll be continuing to do a lot of the same things, just using this different script and adding in these new asks.
Great. And so with that, we don't want to take up too much time here. We want to maybe jump into questions. We got a few of those already. Do you want to lead us off?
Sure. So first we have a question from Eric from North Carolina. Why call for impeachment hearings now when the investigation is still ongoing? Is it too soon?
Sure, I can take that one. So the bottom line here is, what we know already is that Trump obstructed justice. He tried to interfere with an ongoing FBI investigation. That is a crime, and that's why we're calling for impeachment hearings. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States, and that's why we're calling for impeachment hearings. Something to note, though, is that impeachment hearings are for the violations that Donald Trump has already committed. What we still want is an independent commission to look into the larger Russian interference in the 2016 elections. So that's why in our ask, we're talking about, first, we want to see impeachment hearings, and then also an independent commission to look into the Russian involvement. Impeachment very, very, very long time, but they have to start with something. They have to start with the resolution. They have to start with the process. This is the first step. Impeachment hearings are the first step. We hope to get to impeachment, but this is where we begin. Oh, do you want to talk about maybe why now?
Yeah. So I said a little bit about this, but I think it's important to emphasize we are the most powerful grassroots organization in this country right now, and that means that we can actually be the people who hold our representatives accountable. At some point, there needs to be an organization that actually steps forward and starts to push the conversation to the left and actually reframe the issue. And by doing this, we open up the space for representatives to actually start to make these calls. In fact, we know that articles of impeachment will be introduced in the House within the next couple of days. That's incredibly powerful, but in order to get more representatives to sign on and to do the right thing, the people are going to have to keep holding them accountable. In the same way that we were able to get that special counsel appointed, we're going to actually have to force our representatives to reckon with this. And again, the thing about this that is incredibly powerful is that we sort of win either way. On one hand, we either get impeachment articles introduced and we actually start to see those hearings move forward. On the other hand, if the party in power, the Republicans and the Dems, refuse to reckon with this, that's something that we're going to hold them accountable to in 2018. And so, it's the old organizing adage: you either change what the representatives are doing, or you change the representatives. And so this is the start of that process. We have to be the ones who hold that line.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add that, we have a special counsel now, which is good. I mean, once Comey was fired, there was a real need to have an independent person looking into the matter. But we wouldn't have gotten that if not for the widespread support and the public call for a special prosecutor. That's what we got. That's a victory. And that's why we need to start the impeachment hearing process now, because it's not going to happen unless Republicans in Congress feel the pressure from their constituents, and that's you. You have to come out, and it's not going to happen without you.
Great. Now we'll go on to the next question, which is from Karen from Wisconsin. Hearing from some Dems in red states that they think calling for impeachment now will be a setback. Thoughts on that?
So I'm particularly excited to actually answer this question because I think it gets to the very heart of our theory of change. One of the things that's most powerful about the Indivisible Network is that we are in every single congressional district. Folks may recall that the last time that Congress changed hands in favor of the Democrats was in 2006 when the DNC had a 50-state plan. What we have is an every congressional district plan. That means that we can put pressure on representatives in every single district all over the country, and by doing that, that's the kind of thing that actually moves the needle. We were the people who were able to force Republicans to actually call for a special counsel. We were the people who changed the conversation on the ACA and who forced them, or on the American Healthcare, the AHCA, there we go. We're the people who actually forced Republicans to vote against it the first time around. That power is the power that rests with all of us. And that means that the groups who are in the red states, you're the most important folks in this fight. You're the folks who are going to actually force the party in power, the Republican Party, to actually deal with this. And again, either they do the right thing and actually go with introducing the articles of impeachment, or they come out and say no and tie themselves to Trump even further. And that's going to come back to bite them in 2018. All of that said, everything that we do is about the local power that you hold and the work that you're doing in your district. You know your district best. We made this judgment based on the conversation here in Washington and our best knowledge of what we think is right. And on the power that we hold as an organization nationally. That said, if that doesn't work for you in your district, you can decide whether or not this is a thing that you want to put your energy and time into, and that's absolutely a decision that rests with you. But I would encourage you to think about what the theory of change is and how we really will move this forward. I think we're done with the time of trying to, do the best we can to kind of accommodate the Republicans. I think that time has passed. I think the time is now to force a progressive movement in this country and to move us forward on a real progressive agenda, and this is a part of that.
I would also quickly add, we've heard some really great stories from folks in a lot of these red districts about learning more about their neighbors, learning that their next door neighbor agrees with them and wants to be part of their indivisible group and wants to get engaged. And they had no idea that in what they think of as more of a sea of red, they actually have this really strong group and all these folks that are emerging. So it's been inspiring to see all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I also want to this is a moment when there are a lot of things that you guys are going to be working on, and we know it's hard, it's frustrating, it's one thing after another, everything's always on fire, and that's on purpose. They want us to be stretched thin, but what we've already seen is that you guys can handle it. All of you in your groups can handle it, and we have already had some victories, but it's not over, and we need to keep fighting. Another question?
All right, I think so. Derek from Wisconsin says, honestly, do we want Pence at the reins of things while slowly losing our massive 2018 edge by kicking Trump out? Nothing will change except for the GOP having a better chance during midterms.
Yeah, I can take that one. So we've gotten, I think, quite a few of this question in one form or another from a bunch of people, and that's, is Mike Pence any better than Donald Trump? Look, I don't want to see a Pence president, trust me. I don't think any of us do. But the bottom line here is that Donald Trump has obstructed justice, and he needs to see justice. Now, Donald Trump is not someone that we would expect to go out without swinging, and there's a good chance that he's going to throw everyone under the bus, including Mike Pence, and we might not even get Mike Pence. There's also a good chance that, from what we know already, that as these impeachment hearings move forward, as we know more, if we get an independent commission, we might learn that, hey, maybe Mike Pence is also implicated in a lot of this. So we just don't know, which is why we need to have those hearings, or we need to get to the truth. That is what we're asking for. We all want to get the truth. And the other thing I would quickly mention is that Donald Trump, as much as I don't like Mike Pence, and I don't want to see him president, Donald Trump is the one who gives us this existential threat, right? Donald Trump is the person that is right now in control of our military, of our nuclear arsenal. That is dangerous in and of itself, and that is something that I know it scares me. And so of the two, there's one that I think poses the bigger existential threat. Mike Pence is someone I don't want to see president, but he's at least predictable and isn't a tweet away from disaster.
Great. We'll go to now Ginny from New York. Frankly, I am concerned. Of course, we want Trump impeached, but to drive that issue to the top of the list surely pushes other things back. Critical things like healthcare, immigration reform, and the endless list of things under attack by this administration. Should this really be a priority?
Yeah, that's a great question. So today we had the hearing where we had James Comey testify, and we learned from his mouth that Donald Trump interfered with an investigation. That's something that deserves action. That's why we're calling for impeachment hearings. What we don't want is to lose sight of the other issues, right? This is all about stopping the Trump agenda, and right now the Senate is actively trying to repeal the ACA. Right now the Senate is meeting in secret, trying to figure out how it can force this bill through the Senate. They are trying to take away millions of people's health care. They are trying to take away the ACA. That is important. We don't want to lose sight of that. That is the most important thing happening in Congress right now. If whatever you're working on, this is the most important thing happening, and that's where our attention needs to be over the next few weeks. They really think they can get a vote on an ACA repeal bill by the end of this month. That's how critical a moment we are. So I don't want people to lose sight of that. That being said, this is a long process, and we need to do a few things at the same time. And one of them is making sure that Donald Trump isn't above the law. He can't operate with impunity, and that's why we're calling for impeachment hearings, while also recognizing that there are a lot of other things that we care about, like ACA, like the budget that would gut a bunch of key programs, that would gut the EPA. There are a ton of things that we're working on that we need to keep our focus on.
The one other thing that I would add here is that, as Angel has noted, this is a long process, and so we're going to start with calls to our representatives to introduce those articles and to start impeachment hearings. But we're starting with calls, and then we're going to go back to our work on all of these other critical issues. Folks may have experienced that their newsfeed is just sort of a daily shop of horrors. We know that more information on these issues is going to continue to come out, and as more comes out about the obstruction of justice, about the work in what's happened in Russia, we're going to keep making those calls, and we're going to keep doing tactics around impeachment over the long term. That doesn't mean every day, it doesn't mean every week even, but just when these moments come up, and we'll continue to beat the drum and build that long-term pressure on these representatives that, again, is going to make them do the right thing, or we're going to hold them accountable to it. And so I think there's absolutely the ability for us to do both things because impeachment is so drawn out.
And I'll make a quick pitch. If you aren't already, we have weekly emails that come out on Monday that include priorities of these different policies. So that's at indivisibleguide.com. You can sign up for those emails if you're not signed up.
That's great.
Great. Now we have a question from Alexander. Republican members of Congress are scared of doing the right thing because Trump is still very popular with most of the Republican base. Since most Republicans are more afraid of a primary challenge than a general election, should local groups try to do more to speak to other members of their community, not just their rep?
Yeah, I'm going to start, and then I'm going to pass it to Angel if he wants to add anything, or Sarah. Republican members of Congress are afraid of a primary challenge. The thing that makes them afraid of a primary challenge is their constituents. And so the reason they're afraid of the primary challenge is because a lot of them got primaried after the Tea Party did what they did. I'll say it again, we're a lot bigger than the Tea Party ever was. So if they're afraid of a primary, they should be afraid of a primary from our side of things, and they should be moving in our direction. So yeah, absolutely, you should be doing more to speak to other members of your community. You should be building the power that you hold in the community. But absolutely, all of that should continue to focus on the Republicans in your districts and forcing them to reckon with us, because that's actually going to be the thing that moves them in our direction, not further to the right.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add that it's shocking to see so many Republicans out there defending obstruction of justice. After the memo was released, or we had word of the memo, and then after we saw Comey's testimony, and then today after we heard it directly from Comey's mouth, we have Republican senators out there defending the action, saying, "Oh, you know what? He's new at this. He's not a politician. He doesn't know how this is supposed to work." Well, it's an impeachable offense, and that is not okay, regardless of who you are. And so even if Donald Trump, I don't buy this argument that Donald Trump just doesn't know what he's doing, because he definitely knows what he's doing. But senators, Republicans know that this is an issue. They know this is obstruction of justice, and they're defending it. They're defending obstruction of justice, and they need to be held accountable next year.
And the last thing I would add in is that by doing this local congressional advocacy, even if you don't realize it, you're also talking to your neighbors. When you're out doing a die-in at a public place, when you're showing up in force to a town hall, you're still talking to your neighbors and having more of an effect than you even realize. Great. So let's now go to Elaine from Florida. None of what we've done has made any impact on our Senator Rubio. He's in till 2022. What now?
Matt.
Do you want?
Yeah,
Sure.
I got it. Senator Rubio is a weather vane. He has changed his position on so many things, and he changes it based on political pressure and what he thinks will be the best for his political future. So it may not have made any impact on him to date, But rest assured that over the long term, especially until 2022, he will continue to feel that pressure and he will eventually fold. It's in his very nature. And all of these representatives are like that. Just because they haven't gone yet, it's insane to remember this, but we've really only been at this since January. There's so much more time for us to continue to put the pressure on these representatives and so much more time for the power and the pressure to continue to get to them. So just because they haven't folded yet, don't lose hope. There's absolutely a future there. You can make them do the right thing. You just need to keep the pressure on. So.
Great. And I'll just shout out that we have some new resources on how to keep the motivation up in your group and how to keep going, because we're in this for the long haul. So we have a doc about how to keep your members motivated, how to stay motivated on the website. And we also have a new resource that just came out today, I believe, on some tips for scheduling and planning out how you're going to keep doing this moving forward. Great. Now we have a question from Jacqueline from Oregon. I have been writing to my MOC, but I live in blue state in Oregon. My Democratic congressmen and senators are already standing against Trump. What else can I do to help?
They're not standing up enough yet. So, for instance, we are calling on our members of Congress to call for impeachment. The number of Congress people who have done that is very, very small. So the folks in Oregon can absolutely have an impact by continuing to actually make the calls that we're asking for and to drive their other members to do that work and to be champions as well.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add that, everything you're hearing today, is about Comey, and we're also hearing about the ACA, and those are the big priorities, and we don't want to, lose focus on those. But there are other things that Congress is working on. There was a bill earlier this week that would basically make it easier for ICE to deport people. And we lost some Democrats on that bill. Some Democrats voted for this bill that would harm families, American families. There were Democrats who voted for it. So there might be other bills, maybe not the ones that that might make the headlines, but there are other bills where you can still make an impact.
Great. Yeah, and even just today, Angel mentioned the CHOICE Act earlier. We had groups calling both Democrats and Republicans to make sure that they were going to vote the right way on that, even during the hearings. So shout out to all you guys who were calling all day today.
Yeah, and we even got a Republican who voted against it, which is great. I think it was Rep. Walters who voted against this bill. So kudos to the groups in that area, in that district.
Good work.
Yeah. Great. We have Wava from Florida. How do we deal with the conservative spin that Comey's testimony was a win for them?
Well, I'll start this off, and I'm curious what other people think. But no, I mean, it is spin, right? I mean, the bottom line is that Comey confirmed that Donald Trump obstructed justice. Like, you can't spin your way out of that. It's an impeachable offense. It deserves impeachment hearings, and we deserve to know the truth, and we deserve a full investigation. So members of Congress, Republicans, might be doing what they do, which is choosing their party over their country, and that's why they need to hear from you. They need to make sure that they know that is unacceptable.
Yep. Do you want to say? Okay.
I agree.
All right, great. All right, this is our last question. It's a fun one. It's from Heather in North Carolina. What is the most creative form of resistance you have seen so far since the election? I'll start off. This one's great. There have been so many creative things, and I think one of my favorite parts about this is that once there's one creative thing, because of social media, because of the way that you guys are amplifying the work that you're doing, it's usually not an isolated incident. Usually we'll see something creative happen, and then we see another group do it, and then another group, and then another group. So it's been amazing to see the way that you all are sharing these best practices with one another through various venues. But that being said, I don't want to pick the most creative, but I think we've mentioned this a lot. There was in Michigan, I think it was back in February, there was a live chicken that represented Trot for a town hall because they couldn't get their member of Congress to show up. So it was easier to secure a chicken to go and represent the member of Congress. We've had actually various sightings of this kayaktivism, as it's called formally now. I don't know if that's in the dictionary or not, but we've had a lot of folks on kayaks when they can't get to events, to fundraisers, paddling up in their kayaks. So we've had so many great creative things happening. We had speaking of Rubio, there was an empty suit town hall. I think this may have already been mentioned on a Facebook Live recently, but they didn't just have an empty chair like many of these events do. They had a full suit that was blown up in some way. So yeah, there are these just incredible things. And keep tweeting out, keep sending us your stories. We want to hear more about these and be able to amplify them. Do you guys have other creative things that you want to add?
I have one that my new
Great.
favorite. So my new favorite this is a shout out to
Should we just stop it?
Sorry, quick technical difficulty. But shout out to the high school students of Cincinnati Indivisible who wanted to run an ad on the impacts, I think, of the AHCA. They decided they wanted to do that, and despite none of them having taken more than a high school economics class, did what it took to incorporate and become a small nonprofit, raise money, and raised enough money that they were able to actually run that ad in their district on a number of television stations, and that ad will be seen by more than 100,000 people. It's a YouTube video that they created, and it's now going to run on television over the course of the next week. So I love you, Cincinnati, and I'm originally from Ohio, so right on, OH.
And it's such a powerful ad too. It's incredible. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Great. So I think we're at time. So thank you to Sarah and Isaac, and thank you for all of you for all of what you're doing, and keep it up, because if we stand indivisible, we will win.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.